Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Tonight, flood control and management. Well, it is the rainy season, that period when farmers and other dependents on rainfall are expected to count their blessings. But in the middle of it is floods, the disaster that wreaks havoc on and displaces communities across the country. In the last few weeks, statistics indicate severe flooding, with towns, villages, bridges, and farmlands washed away. This perhaps is prompting government action at all levels, including key players in the environment sector. The latest is the federal government directive on the draft of a national flood emergency preparedness and response plan, which has been revalidated and is going to the Federal Executive Council anytime soon. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will engage critical stakeholders in flood control and management, as well as other intervention measures to strengthen capacity response in more than 20 states on red alert.
This is New Murigi, a community in Niger State taken over by flood. This elderly woman, Amina, and other dozens of the locals were forced to relocate to the main road. The village is located along floodplains areas adjacent to River Kaduna. There are 1,000 communities like this along River Niger and Benue that have been facing this ugly environmental challenge annually. This includes settlements along coastal areas in the southern parts of the country. Although flooding is a natural phenomenon caused by antecedents such as prolonged heavy rain and overfilling of rivers, there are also human factors, include unplanned urbanization, poor sewage management, and lack of flood control measures. This year alone, 33 states have reported cases of flood that killed at least 372 people in 8 months. It is as a result of this that the Federal Executive Council approved a national flood emergency preparedness and response plan for the country. The government said the plan will provide more resilience and effective response measures to mitigate the impact of flooding on Nigerians.
This plan sets out clear roles and responsibility of each stakeholder involved in flood preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. We call on all states and operational stakeholders to implement the plan so that we can return to normalcy and protect our national development.
Investigations revealed that state and local government authorities, including humanitarian organizations, are yet to understand the flood emergency preparedness and response plan. Musa Aliyu.
All right, that report by Musa Aliyu sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's get to introduce our guest to you. We'd like to welcome to this program, I believe for the very first time, is the Deputy Governor of Jigawa State, Umar Namadi. Deputy Governor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Tere.
Right. We're also joined tonight by the Director General of the Niger Hydrological Services Agency, an engineer, Clement Nze. Thanks for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Let me also welcome to tonight's program Director, Relief and Rehabilitation, National Emergency Management Agency, Al Hassan Nuhu. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
All right. Also on tonight, we'd like to welcome to this program Ahmed Kana. He's a geologist. Good to have you with us tonight. Okay. And we also have here a former general manager of the Kaduna State Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Yusuf Rigasa. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
And also here tonight is the Director, the Weather Forecasting Service of NIMET. That's the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, and Engineer Mailadi Yusuf Abba. Thanks for being with us on Tuesday Live.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
All right. As we always do on Tuesdays on this program, we acquaint you with the procedure. However, the one that we always want to refer to regularly is that time of the program that's in the second segment of it, actually. That's when it becomes interactive and you can call in and be part of the discussion in the studio. But when it gets to that time, we'll refresh your memory, we'll remind you of the procedure. But for now, let's go straight into tonight's discussion, which is all about flood and flood control. And we have the key stakeholders who have joined us here today. Let's begin by placing in perspective this matter of flooding, which has become almost an annual ritual in this country with the attendant loss of lives and property. Yes, sometimes it's a natural disaster. Sometimes the activities of humans themselves create the factors in this annual flooding. But to put it in its right context, let's go to the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, who would open up by telling us why we're facing this situation almost on a yearly basis. Engineer Mailadi Yusuf Abba, Director, Weather Forecasting Service of NIMET. Let's hear you.
Because NIMET monitors the weather with all its parameters, including rainfall, which is the key parameter that causes flooding. If there's no rainfall, there will be no water to flow. And luckily for us, we have a team of engineers, scientists that annually study the weather, the atmospheric sciences, and issue what we call the seasonal climate prediction. This year, that prediction was issued early in February, and we warned the nation that we are going to experience normal to above normal rainfall in most parts of the country. And that is exactly what we are seeing. We have been following up on that prediction, issuing updates to the nation that this is what is happening. And as of today, most parts of the country have already witnessed higher than normal rainfall activities. That is what we are witnessing in parts of the north for now. Jigawa State, for example, Bauchi State, parts of Kano, Kaduna State, and these are states that are bordering Jigawa, for example, and all the water that is falling on those states flows into Jigawa on its way to Lake Chad. And that's why you have these very serious issues with Jigawa State for today, as at now. We are having very serious flooding issues, and I'm sure the Deputy Governor, His Excellency, will talk more on the impacts that they are witnessing of those floods. But these are our predictions. We predicted that we are going to have normal to above normal rainfall, and it's happening. NISA, the DG is here. He used our data to produce the annual flood outlook, and he has also given out a lot of warnings to the nation that yes, flooding is going to occur as it does year in, year out. So this is the preliminary of what we are going to be discussing, I believe. I don't know if I...
Much and well, just as he said there, we have the Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Engineer Clement Nze, and it's appropriate at this point to find out, I mean, the flood outlook and why it goes on year in, year out. Let's hear you.
In fact, it's quite unfortunate that has remained the trend. Earlier in the year, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency went public. The supervising minister, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adam, made a public presentation of the prediction the agency made with regards to flooding in the course of the year. What triggers flooding activities, like Engineer mentioned, rainfall is a major component, but other factors include the geology of the environment, the topography of the environment, the river network in those areas, the temperature, humidity, several factors, and even anthropogenic activities. All these are more the agency studies, and we bring them together to enable us to do our computation. It is scientific prediction, not a product of guesswork. Now, in our prediction for the year 2022, we placed 233 local government areas on red alert, and it cut across 32 states and FCT that these 233 local government areas in Nigeria will be heavily impacted. We say highly probable flood risk local government areas. We listed all of them. And an additional 121 LGS will be suffering another degree of flooding, but not like the first 233. So all these local government areas were listed, and the state governors were properly notified by the Honorable Minister of Water Resources in writing, listing for each governor, these are the places that have been placed on red alert in the course of the year. And it's quite unfortunate that it is progressing as predicted. Early prediction or early warning that is coupled with early action will have gone a long way to ameliorate what we are suffering for now.
All right, thank you so much. We've heard from the two agencies that are directly connected to telling us what the outlook would be like and why this is happening. But let's come to the very human angle of all of this now. And Jigawa happens to be one of the states that have been hit this time around, and we have here the Deputy Governor, and first would like to just extend our condolences to you.
Thank you, sir.
On the loss of lives and property.
Thank you very much.
Just tell us how Jigawa is coping with this.
Well, Jigawa, I think anyway, we know normally this flood is perennial in Jigawa, almost year in, year out. But this year is peculiar, very, very peculiar. I think the professional can tell you there are about two types of flooding. Now, the off-land flooding, which is happened due to rainfall that normally become heavy, and in the course of going into the river canal, it destroys farmland, it destroys properties, it destroys everything. Now, the other one is a lowland river canal flooding. Now, this one is normally the one we experience in Jigawa. Due to overflooding of the river bank, and therefore because the water tried to move out of the river course. And that has been the one we have experienced. The other one, the offland flooding, is very rare. It happens, but very rare. But unfortunately this year, it is the one that gave us a lot of problems. About 8 local governments were affected in the first instance. Fairly heavy rainfall that destroys so many houses, that destroys so many farmlands, and cause a lot of havoc. In fact, a lot of lives were lost also as a result, because building will collapse with people inside it. And that's exactly which is very, very new, and it has not been happening before. Now, the other one, which is lowland flooding, which happens due to overflow of the river, now come again and then double the effect on our people. So at least this year, the impact of flooding in Jigawa is beyond the way we think about it. In fact, it's beyond what what normally happens. Now, because as I am talking to you today, now we lost almost about 72 lives. About 72 people died, and in fact, we have over 27,000 IDPs, and we cannot even quantify the number of houses. In fact, towns, villages that has been submerged completely, and you cannot. As I'm talking to you now, these villages, there is no single house that is standing in that villages. So the entire community has been moved out in so many places. And so these people, and in the next 3-5 months, we don't expect them to come back to their places, because even if the rain has gone, where will they sleep? And that's exactly the situation we are facing in Jigawa today.
This situation would likely lead to a humanitarian crisis. How are you coping with that?
Of course, it leads a lot of humanitarian crisis, because the question is, now we are talking about 27 people at IDPs. You have to accommodate them, you have to feed them, and you have to provide medical care for them. You have to provide everything for them. And this is exactly what the government is doing. The government is doing all it can do to make sure that these people are safe. We keep them in a place, and we are giving them food items, palliatives, blanket, mosquito net, and medical care also, because you need to keep them in a place, and most of the place we are giving them is the primary schools. So our schools has been taken over by these IDPs as of today. And not only that, the major crisis series is this thing has come in addition to the loss of life and destruction of property. It affected the entire economic life of these people, because they will have to start a new life entirely, because their farmlands, even the farmland which is the main source of their income, has been taken over, has been washed away by the flood. The situation in Jigawa is beyond the way people think about it. And this thing is happening up to today. These figures I'm giving you are as last week. Even today, I was called, another village has been submerged, has been taken over. The water is just coming, it's just going, and we don't know where it will stop.
Alhassan Nuhu, Director Relief and Rehabilitation, NEMA. Let's hear your impressions about this. You see this all the time, but it would seem as if it's getting worse every year. And the crisis, the humanitarian situation that arise from this, the numbers of people who are displaced, and we're not even talking about those who lose their lives, the damage to the economy. How do you begin to put all of this together? Response?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, that the National Flood Preparedness, Mitigation and Response Plan was even approved by the Federal Executive Council. And that plan delineated responsibilities for all the tiers of government, for ministries, departments, and agencies in all the facets of disaster management: prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So every facet was looked at. This is a distinct flood plan. Hitherto, what we have are generic plans, multi-hazard plans that is applicable to all the hazards. But because of the perennial incident of flood, we now single out flood to do a plan for it. And that plan has delineated responsibility for each and every player. The situation is bad, as you rightly mentioned. We have already recorded over 300 deaths with farmlands, thousands of hectares of farmlands, and thousands of houses, some partially, some totally damaged. Normally, when we have an incident of flood, we search for victims and rescue them. And luckily now we have 15 offices spread across the nook and crannies of the country. Our officers are always available to search for victims and rescue them. And then When the situation is perceived to be beyond the coping capacity of the state, the agency deploy its own resources to provide food, to provide NFIs, non-food items, to provide temporary shelter, and to provide medicaments. This we've been doing in all the areas. And luckily enough, NEMA is on a good state. We have motorized boats recently launched by the Director General. We have increased our rapid response vehicles. We have increased our MICU ambulances, and our air ambulance is back on track. So this flood issue has become perennial, as is rightly pointed out, and all efforts are being put on deck to ensure that it doesn't happen by providing the necessary information, as DG NISA mentioned. After their annual flood outlook and the NIMET SCP, we followed it with a digest, and we sent to each and every state governor the flood map of the likely affected areas. The highly probable areas were mapped so that they can see it in a more clearer terms. We engage in a lot of advocacy, capacity building to ensure that this plus doesn't come. But as it comes now, we are already on the field providing succor to those who are.
I'm looking at a situation here where this is not even limited to one part of the country, and I'm wondering about the capacity of the agency to cope with, such.
Well, no single agency can do it alone. It is a work for the community itself, the local government, the state government, the federal government, the respective ministries, departments, and agencies across all the jurisdictions. So no one single agency can do it. And unfortunately, whenever it happens, the cry is for NEMA to come. Some is even within the coping capacity of the community. Some, the local government can do it. Some, the state can do it. But NEMA is called at every instance. Of course, NEMA alone cannot do it. What we do is to support the capacity of the state to be able to do that. And we've been busy before the onset of the rainy season, trying to build the capacities of the states to be able to play their own roles. They have roles clearly delineated for them, and they are expected to do. If you don't do that, you continue to have horrendous humanitarian crisis at your own hand. No single agency can do it alone. No tier of government can do it alone. We have to, and the plot plan is very, very clear on that. It stated what is expected from the point of prevention by the community, by the local government, by the state, and by the federal government. If we do that, floods happens because we have excessive rainfall. But other countries do have excessive rainfall, like the Netherlands. I've been to a point in Netherlands that is 6.7 meters below sea level. And yet you find industry, you find population, and you find activities going on. So if you have the right structural measures, the right information, perennial flood will become a thing of the past in Nigeria.
Okay, let's go over to Dr. Yusuf Rigasa, former General Manager, Kaduna State Environmental Protection Agency. The environment that we live in is under threat from so many things, not the least flooding. And how do you cope with this particular one? Let's hear you about what's happening currently.
I believe that the effort being put by federal agencies such as NIMET, NISA, and NEMA, is quite impressive. But somehow we tend to forget the environmental dynamics and the relationship of our citizens and communities vis-a-vis, the function and responsibilities that they have in environmental management. If you look at state particularly, they are not usually well funded, they are not properly informed, and when it comes to resources, especially at local government, you realize that local governments are weak in terms of properly regulating environmental dynamics within their domains. So what we need to do when we are facing these environmental challenges is to take advantage of whatever resources and information that are coming from the federal government, use them in order to prepare our communities, in order to build resilience in our community, because resilience is very key. Flood has been happening before humanity on this our planet, and it will continue to occur. However, our capacity to manage it as human beings is actually what will reduce the impact on our people and citizens.
Okay. At this point, perhaps we should go on now to the geologist in our midst this evening, Ahmed Kana, and ask what ordinary folks would ask. What's going on? Is it that nature is getting more and more vicious? What's happening?
First and foremost, I want to start from where the DG NISA says that the issue of flooding begins from the geology. And when you talk about geology, you're talking about it's all encompassing. We're talking about water cycle, both surface water, groundwater, and then hydrometeorology of the area. Now, if you look at Nigeria as a case study, Nigeria has about 8 hydrological areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 8. And now within these 8 hydrological areas, we are able to carve out about 12 river basins, which are based on catchments. Now, where the missing link is, the river basins have not been doing what is expected of them in terms of hydrometeorology, in the terms of monitoring of their rivers. Then it goes down up to the state level, that's the State Ministry of Water Resources and then the water corporations. Even the state water corporations, 30, 40 years ago, you have Department of Hydrology and Hydrogeology, which you have gauges in each of the rivers, which data are being generated on hourly basis or 2-hour basis. And now, as long as you take the data, you do some kind of hydrographic studies, you measure the depth of the river periodically, and now you'll be able to determine whether the river is silting or not. This thing is missing as we speak. Most of the state water agencies, their hydrogeology department are moribund. They are not doing what is expected. If supposing they are doing all those things, then the data they are having, it will now going to fit the NISA and then fit the NIMET. It will now going to, at least the prediction is going to be better. So as we speak, we need to go back to the drawing board to start generating data on the rivers where we have waterworks, even the Ministry of Water Resources, or the rivers within the state, especially based on the ongoing water bill, rivers that are within the state are supposed to be monitored by the state, and that's supposed to be the Department of Hydrology and Hydrogeology. They are supposed to have officers on the area offices so that they'll be generating this data, then they feed it to that. Then as we speak, most of the water corporations don't have even hydrometeorological stations. Even the NIMET, as the NIMET officer has presented, Jina Maladi, you discover that within a state, how many stations do they have to be able to have quality data, to have better prediction? The global best practice is the more the merrier. So I only commend the federal government for setting up the plan. It is actually coming late, but better. But if you look at the genesis of the peak of flood in Nigeria from 2012 to now, what have we done different from 2012 as a lesson vis-a-vis taking the data of NIMET and NISA in terms of putting up the structures? One of the speakers talked about Netherlands. Yes, Netherlands is staying 6 meters below sea level. If you look at the case studies of Netherlands, the flood of 1916, flood of 1953, they are able to have a very long plan of over 40 years. They are able to create some dams, over 13 dams, creating Hoeve and Holland in around Rotterdam. And these things serve as a mitigation measure, they do canalization and channelization, whereby all this data you are getting, you know the total amount of water you are going to have, then you put in all those structures. As we speak, Netherlands is spending about 1 billion euro to maintain existing structures. When if you cumulate the entire budget of NIMET, NIMA, and other response agencies, we have not started anything. So I think there is a need for us to go back to drawing board and then so that we can be able to generate data so that we go in by preventive flooding instead of curative. Because what we are doing, even in the agencies where we are talking in this program, NEMA is more funded more than NIMET and NISA. So we are doing more of reaction instead of prevention. So there is a need for us to key in. Flooding is not exclusive. It is concurrent, just like water supply. And that to say, issue of monitoring should start from the federal up to the state, from the state, Ministry of Water Resources, the water board, and then there should be a nexus in terms of interministerial. Even as it's in the state, you discover that the information that comes from the federal to the state, maybe in terms of NIMET and NEMA now, they take funds and give it to the state emergency. State emergency does not relate with the State Ministry of Environment. They don't relate to the custodians of water, which is the Ministry of Water Resources. So there is a need for us to have that nexus, so that if data is being brought, then there's a need to have that common basket. I could recall after the 2012 flood, they were able to classify some state as grade A, grade B. For instance, Nasarawa State was given certain amount of money to be able to serve as a relief in terms of provision of water supply and the rest. I could recall some of us that were in the state water agency were not aware. We were told that money was disbursed to the state emergency and they carried out their work. So there is a need for that nexus from the federal up to state and then up to the local government.
All right, thank you so much. We have, in addition to the studio discussion, we have other reports here. The very first one is coming from a place that is known for its perennial flooding. All it takes is just a few drops of rain and it's flood everywhere. Let's get this first report from Lagos.
Residents in riverbank areas in Lagos like Agility, Ajegule, Ishori North, Iwaya, Makoko, Ijorabadia, and Shibiri have been cautioned to be at alert and adhere strictly to the warnings of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency weather prediction on the changing raining pattern, as Lagos is identified as one of the states to experience flash floods with disastrous effects.
Lagos as a state and as a city can only be involved in working towards these global goals if Lagos does so from the understanding of its peculiarity as a low-lying littoral body, which is largely a coastal city with a 30% land and 70% water.
Simon, an undergraduate of psychology who lives in one of such areas, narrates his ordeal and several steps taken by residents to reduce the damaging effect of rains on lives and property.
The area itself is not the only place suffering that thing, but Lagos, the place we think that is not, experiencing that thing, all of a sudden we saw flood there.
While the issue of flood is not only synonymous with riverbank areas in the state, some parts of Victoria Island and Lekki axis are usually flooded most times it rains, leaving residents with fairy tales.
The people in our area, we do clean our gutter because they have to make sure that the water channel is free from refuse so that water can flow.
Although this form of natural disaster, environmentalists say can be minimized if Lagosians change their attitude to waste disposal and general environmental hygiene.
Lagos is a city with over 20 million population and generating excess of 13,000 metric tons of waste daily. The attitude of our people can actually help us stop indiscriminate dumping of refuse in every nook and cranny of the state.
As emergency responders continue to render assistance when the need arises, Lagosians in flood-prone areas have been admonished to always adhere to warnings.
All right, our next report is from Jigawa. Let's get to see how the situation is.
words to describe the situation of residents in Jigawa State over the fresh flood warning alert issued by NAMED, having experienced the devastating flood disaster last month, the worst in recent years. The August flood has affected parts of all the local government areas in the state, with victims languishing in effects of the disaster. The month-long continuous flooding has so far claimed 70 lives across the affected areas in the state. The state government is sensitizing and relocating communities expected to be affected by the next round of flooding, as predicted by NIMET. The State Emergency Response Agency is providing interventions from Presidential Committee on Flood, NEMA, and that of the state government to support the displaced persons in more than 13 camps provided
plots for them in the upper land so that they evacuate the lower land and go to the upper land so that the people will be free there.
As this is going on, however, there are concerns being raised by humanitarian experts over the risk the destruction of bridges and roads by the flood has exposed many communities who cross river unprepared. This came as the state do not have presence of national inland waterways to sensitize or provide proactive devices.
If there is no money, government can hardly help people to reconstruct because construction is costly, even if it is mad construction. So I think gradual movement should be encouraged.
At least we are urging and calling for people to give at least the relief materials on their own capacity. That is to say, be it organizations, individuals, and other pillars that should come to the people, aid of the people.
Environmentalists are calling on government to provide alternative accommodation to those living in the identified flood flashpoints. From Dutse, Ibrahim Bello.
Well, we're back in the studio here, and of course, as we introduced him earlier on, the Deputy Governor of Jigawa State is still very much with us here, keen into this emergency response plan. What is the state government doing?
Okay. Well, you see, an emergency response, the state government, you see, we have two things. In the first instance, you see, as much as possible, we try to sensitize our people. Tell them, look, this is what is likely to happen as advised by the expert. Therefore, you need to do A, B, C, and D. This we are doing. And in addition to that, the emergency response we would normally do is to see, once it happens, evacuate these people to a safer place. Now provide relief materials for them, as we do. Now the next thing we also do, in addition to that, you see, we try as much as possible to see, okay, since these people are in needs, after providing the relief materials and providing health expert to go there and try and take care of their health, then again the government will now come and see, okay, what is the next alternative to do? We try as much as possible also to see how we can engage the expert to advise us on what is the next thing to do. Now, government now is trying to do as much as possible. For example, as part of the emergency response we are doing, the state government also tries as much also to bring in expert to advise us. Look, this situation is becoming very, very serious. So in addition to that, the expert will say, okay, look, this is, we do A, B, C, and now, for example, we realized that in Jigawa, two things happened. Now, the silting of the river and the typhoid grass are the major causes of this flooding. And because of that, in the first 3 months before the rain season, we try as much as possible to do a lot of embankment in all the affected areas within the river bank. So to do a lot of embankment, we spend a lot of money doing embankment to try to protect the communities from the water. Now, in addition to that embankment we do as a result of, now the silting of the river is very, very costly. It's heavy. It requires a lot of heavy capital. Now, we have about 325 kilometers along the river bank, and that the entire 325 kilometers need to be desilted. Now, the federal government, through the World Bank, under trimming project, they have desilted about 95 kilometers. This 95 kilometers, it took them almost more than 1.5 hours, more than 1.5 years to do it. And these are part of the response. So the desilting is something that we cannot do. So as part of, but the typhoid grass now, the government has already bought 2 excavators that we use to remove the taifa grass so as to allow the water to flow. In addition, before even buying the excavators, the government all the year round we engage the locals. We engage the locals from each communities. Then we arrange them to clear those taifa grass, all in an attempt to make sure that the river flow is smooth, so as to avoid this polluting. But all the same, Siri, these things are something that requires a lot of money. Now, in fact, the permanent solution to this, as we are saying, you need to construct dike to ensure along the areas. And this construction of dike, you are talking of about 325 kilometers to construct dike. And in fact, by estimate we have from the expert so far, now it will cost almost about 41 billion naira to construct this dike. The state government doesn't have these resources to do it. And this issue we are seeing, this is something that you just have to do it. These two things, you just have to do it. You need to desilt this river. If you didn't desilt the river, whatever scientific measure you will use, if you didn't desilt the river, if you didn't remove the taifa grass, which we are doing, that one is work we are doing. We have even brought machines. We are sure now the machines have arrived recently and the work has started. I'm sure that will go a long way. But the silting of the river and the construction of dike are very, very important to ensure that we have protect this flooding. In addition to all this, because you see, government has to come in, but the problem is these things are beyond the government. In fact, even to pay palliatives and take care of these people, our local governments are overstretched. The state government has been overstretched with this. Of course, NEMA has came in, also has provided relief materials, which is very good. But what we are saying is we need a permanent solution to this problem.
And Clement, beyond the outlook, the flood outlook, which you've drawn out, how much do you engage with relevant bodies like states and other organs to ensure that this message gets down to the grassroots?
Well, one of us on this platform mentioned, there are 3 levels or tiers of government. The forecasting agencies that see what is going to happen ahead of time, they reside at the federal level. They do their predictions on time. And these are properly communicated to the relevant authorities in other tiers of government, the state to the local government. We cannot be everywhere. When the prediction is being made public by the minister, governors are invited. All the state commissioners of water resources, of environment, state water agencies or water board, they are properly communicated. And the minister always endorses letters to the governors to inform them these are the flashpoints in your own state. Now, having done that, it is expected that the state government should also take their own steps. We can't be everywhere to sensitize the citizens. However, within the limit of our resources, we do carry out zonal sensitization programs, wherein we translate the prediction into the 3 major languages. We'll assemble the contiguous states in some particular locations and then inform them of what I've said at, let me say, at Abuja. I recall, even at the federal level, at the highest point of government, the SGS will be there, or a permanent secretary from there will be there. Other ministers at the federal level, agriculture, environment. But you may hardly see a top-level government official at the state level taking active participation in this. To our dismay, early this year, in February or so, having carried out detailed flood vulnerability mapping of what we call hierarchical area 6, which is Western Littoral, all the southwest states. It was an extensive job done by my agency through using a consultant. We wrote each of the state governors, permanent secretaries and commissioners of water resources, environment, state water boards. Please come. We call them to come for a meeting, what we call stakeholders meeting, to tell them what we have done with regard to your zone. But to our dismay, of all the 6 states, including Edo State that is within that Arikula area 6, it's only one permanent secretary that came. And unfortunately, the things we predicted, the document we came to show them is what we guide them to tackle flood issues within Arikula area 6 or Western Littoral, the southwest states. We cannot do more than we are supposed to do or we can do. Just as like now, this is the era of politics, and the politicians carry their messages down to the grassroots, educating everybody, enlightening them what they want to do. We expect that the state government should equally run with it, just as they do in politics. They take messages down to the grassroots for it to be effective.
All right, we'll return to what you're saying, and we will come back to the deputy governor. But I just want to quickly take on this with the Director of Weather Forecasting Service, because earlier on, the deputy governor of Jigawa State did say that this situation is ongoing, suggesting that it's not over yet, and there'll still be more flooding. Now, what are you saying from the end of NIMET?
It's not over, and the sad thing is we are on the 10th of September this year, and we have already registered 3 times the amount of rainfall as at the 10th of September last year in Jigawa State. In August, Jigawa State witnessed 4 times the amount of rainfall that we registered last year. And that's why you have these lots of water unable to pass because of what the deputy governor has said. So much has been put across the flow line of the runoff that is generated by the heavy rainfall that you have these issues of flooding all over Jigawa State. And not only Jigawa State, other neighboring states, as I said. And then Jigawa happens to be lower than the plateau. All the rains that fall on the northern part of the plateau try to reach the Lake Chad, and Jigawa is on the path to reach the Lake Chad. So unless proactive measures are taken by the state governments, particularly on development control, enforcing environmental laws and regulations, that is not bothering who is going to be involved, because these things are so sad. I was passing through Jigawa just 3 days ago, and we had to leave one lane of the express road that is newly constructed along Kano Maiduguri. We had to go to the other lane to pass because of what? Water. And then just by the roadside, you see a lot of buildings that are blocking the pathway of the water that is supposed to have gone through the culvert that is provided. And people just, unless the state governments particularly enforce these laws, we will continue to have these problems. And I tell you, it's not only in Jigawa now, but we are just in September, and our rainfall is coming back into the country through what we call the intertropical discontinuity. It's coming back and going towards the south with a lot of rainfall. So every rain that now falls after south of the plateau will now try to find its way into rivers Niger and Benue, and when they combine in Lokoja, they will flow towards the sea. And then, of course, the other time I saw the clip on Lagos, there's also the issue of the sea level rise from the over 800 kilometers of coastline that we have in the country. The rainfall is falling onto the ocean as well, causing sea level rise. This one coming from the inland is going. So states like Lagos, Rivers, all those in the Niger Delta will experience a lot of flooding if proactive measures are not taken. And we are not late. It's time that the governors listen to these early warning systems advisories that we issue. We are always on air giving updates. We through our various programs like the numerical weather prediction, we give high impact weather forecast, 3-day forecast, so that people can get prepared. I only hope that those governors and their agencies will pay more attention. And unfortunately, like my brother has said, we are in the political campaign period now. I only hope some attention will be given to save lives and property. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Governor, two things here. That's not a very encouraging picture that we're seeing here now. That means it's still a precarious situation, and we can expect that there'll be more devastating floods coming on. And he talked about enforcing environmental laws. Also, people also talk of the ecological fund and funds which are made available to states. How much of this go into mitigating or proactive measures to avoid situations like this?
Well, thank you very much. You see, he also said, the director has said it very clearly, when he was coming along Kano Meduguri Road, Polod has taken over that road. Now, if he has stopped and asked the people from that community, for the last 50 years, they have not seen the rain they have seen this year in that community. 50 years. Now, what environmental issue are you talking? Imposing environmental. 50 years, Jigawa State was not even created. These are something that is natural. So it's beyond planning sometimes. It's more than planning. But the question is, what can we do to mitigate it? But the issue is, okay, this climate change is a reality. Whether we like it or not, climate change is a reality. And he also said that Jigawa State has witnessed, as of September, has gotten more than 3 times of the rain they have gotten last year. As September. I'm sure the prediction did not anticipate that much. So the question is, what we need to agree on one thing. Now, this thing is a natural disaster that happens, but okay, what can we do at least to mitigate it and reduce the impact on our people? And that's exactly what we are saying. Now, for example, like I said, the rain, for example, the upperland rain, the wind pollution, this is exactly what he was saying. It's not something that comes from the river. It's because of the heavy downpour that consume the town and come up also in water after 100 or 1,000 years. If it has its way, it will just follow that way, unless if it didn't happen. So the question is, really, there is need for expert advice on how to deal with these situations. And that is why exactly what we did, His Excellency has already ordered consultant from Nigerland to come and study the perennial polluting in Jigawa and then give us an advice on what we'll do. But really the immediate measures, I'm still insisting, the immediate measures we need to do is desilting the river and clearing the taffa grass. And with this we are doing every day, clearing the taffa grass. Desilting of the river, like I said, requires a heavy capital outlay, and we need also an assistance either from the federal government or from the philanthropic organization to desilt this river. And like the geologists have said it clearly, the example given by Nigerland, you see, they spend 1 billion euro in maintenance. We don't maintain these rivers. That is the truth. We don't maintain these rivers. And as long as we don't maintain them, they will definitely silt. And once they are silted, definitely you need to desilt. And if you didn't desilt, and desilting is part of the maintenance. And once you didn't maintain these rivers and you allow them to desilt, definitely the water will overflow. So these are issues that we need to sit down. It's not the issue of whether the state government give early warning. The issue is beyond early warning, and the issue is beyond looking at environmental situation. Look at the reality. These situations are something that we need to sit down and invite experts to tell us what to do. But on the peripheral, we know is the problem. Maintain these rivers, desilt them, and once you desilt them, definitely the water will flow. As when it flows, definitely it will reduce the pollute. This is reality, Siri. There's nothing more than that.
But in this case, there are funding issues as well, because now you need to call on the federal government.
Yeah, funding issue. We are saying, we know what the country is going. Even the federal government has no money. But what we are saying is, at least, we don't have money to construct new dams. But what we need to do is let's maintain the ones we have. Maintenance culture is very, very important. And once these rivers are not maintained, are not desilted, definitely pollution will continue to happen. This is a reality.
Let me go back to Dr. Yusuf Rigasa. Environmental laws need to be strengthened and enforced because we see in some parts of the country the situation is further worsened by people erecting structures, blocking the flow of water, which leads to flash floods and all that. So let's from your perspective, how are we doing well with environmental protection?
See, the reality of environmental management is that environmental performance is best enforced at local level, that is, among citizens and communities. Constitutionally, some of these basic environmental responsibilities are enforced by the local government. But most of our local government are politically and structurally very, very weak. And within every local government, we have environmental health officers, the people that visit the homes and household of citizens, they visit market, trying to see that environmental variables are well managed. Now, these environmental health officers are not very functional. In some local government, they don't even exist anymore. So how do you enforce environmental regulations? The state cannot enforce it because the parameters that need to be enforced, they have to be enforced on communities and citizens. And you don't expect the federal government to employ environmental officers and send them to people's home. So we need to come back to our senses. We need to build citizen and community-based environmental structures such that when a flood, for example, happens, the citizen will know what to do. They will know how to escape. If a flood happens right here, I don't need to call NIHSA, I don't need to call NEMA. I have to escape first. And the nature of flash floods, they come as a disaster. They want to kill. They are there to destroy not only your properties, but the whole thing, the whole humanity in that place. So we need to prepare the citizens in a way that when flood comes, everybody knows what to do. Let's go back to the community. Let's go back to citizens. Let's go back to local government. I have seen a lot of gaps, and the gaps is between federal and state. All the agencies of federal government must come together and then find linkages to state agencies, to state government. The state must, fund and provide technical capacity for each and every local government that this is the way to implement this emergency flood plan. If there is no such attempt by the states, the local government would be lost. And we need this technical and financial capacity at citizens and community level. Unless this is achieved, whatever laws and regulations that you have, they are not going to work. So let's build the capacity of people. Let's build the capacity of our community. That is the only way forward.
At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, we will bring you more reports, and at that time we'll open the phone lines, and that means you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. It's all about managing flooding, and this is a perennial challenge which has led to the huge losses in lives and property. But stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
All right, thanks for staying with us. We'll start up this segment with a couple of reports, but just before that, let me just quickly say that at this time we'll shortly open the phone lines and you can call in and be part of the discussion. The numbers will be on your screen. You can take advantage of those numbers and call in. But we say this every Tuesday. If you do call in and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. We also encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short, straight to the point, and do not waste much time on greetings. A simple hello is just fine. So right off, we start with another of our reports. This one is coming from Enugu.
Following the climate prediction released by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency (NIMET) and the annual flood outlook by Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency (NISA), which indicate that high flooding will hit 233 local government areas in 32 states and the FCT. Governments of Anambra and Ebonyi, which are flood-prone states in the southeast, in collaboration with the National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA), swung into action through various joint emergency awareness and sensitization campaigns and other interventions aimed at controlling and tackling the trend.
We have carried out assessment in Iko, and like I said, several communities were affected, and the report was sent to the headquarters. We have received intervention.
Idemili North, Orumba North and South, Oka North, Agwata and Ihiala are among the local government areas witnessing flooding in Anambra State. In Ebonyi State, Onaboke in Izi local government area, Ubru in Ohozara, Akeze in Ivo, Afikpo North and South, Ikwo, Ebonyi and Abakaleke local government areas are seriously facing heavy flooding, with property and farmlands destroyed in the areas.
We only experienced what we had this year in 2012. When federal government came for intervention.
And it's only God that saved us and my children especially. Before we could wake up, all of us are swimming in a river, not even ordinary water again.
Because Enugu State literally means a city on a hill, flood is minimal. However, some communities down the hill are annually exposed to flooding and erosion. During the Great Flooding of 2012, some communities in Uzowane lost hectares of farmlands to the flood as many families were displaced. In Enugu, Chidi Okrafo.
Next report comes from Cross River.
An atmosphere reminding many of the pains caused by the flood disaster in parts of Cross River State recently. Farmlands and residential buildings give way to the flood.
I plant cocoa, water, the money, the whole cocoa. Tomorrow is where I walk to. Water spoil everything. It is by stress we are sustaining a living for now.
All hope not lost. National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the Cross River State Emergency Management Agency came for the rescue.
Morgana asked us to come because what we come here to do this night
we are going to write it and send it to Abuja this very night. It's not something will be tomorrow. So that is the reason of our coming.
The local governments in Cross River State, those who are living around the coastal areas, were flooded. Before then, we did a lot of sensitizing them about what we got from these agencies in charge of forecasting.
The flood victims, though still living at the mercy of philanthropists, are gradually getting used to the new phase of life, even though they are not finding it easy.
We are managing because I don't even have hope of anywhere again.
They promise not to build close to the flood-prone areas and take all precautionary measures into practice to avoid such reoccurrence.
Relocate and then build in a way that next time, maybe in case it comes next time, I know the water level now. I know how to build. I know how to survive it.
The rainy season continues. Keeping to advice from relevant agencies and avoid water channels will be of great help at this material time. In Ikom, Cross River State, Esu Idodi.
Let's go back to the geologist, Ahmed Kana. Earlier on, you talked about the topography, being one of those factors that might lead to the situation we have in hand. But again, we've heard that there are some parts, some areas that have not witnessed this. Some haven't had as much rainfall. You heard the deputy governor say that 50 years, a community had not seen anything like that before. So is nature changing? Is it getting worse? We also have mentioned the question of climate change and how devastating is this and how real are we taking this seriously?
Let's go back to the position of the deputy governor of Jigawa State. The issue of water flood mitigation is not a state affair; it's a catchment. Jigawa is part of the hydrological area 8, which is Jigawa, Kano, Yobe, up to Borno State. So them tackling their own problem in that place will not solve a problem. So it's supposed to be holistic. As we are doing it, it's supposed to be a catchment. You have the Jamari River Basin or the Chad Basin. There is a catchment. Some portion there, some part of there is a part of the hydrological area 3, which is Upper Benue. So such studies is comprehensive based on catchment, not as a state affair. However, the issue of the water travels. That's what we call resident time. Some of those waters in Jigawa does not come. It does not mean because it rains in Jigawa, it will probably rain in upstream, some 13 towns upstream. And now there are connectivity between the river basin with adjoining countries like Niger Republic. There are some pockets of rivers that could have connectivity from that place. It means that if it rains from up there, if it doesn't rain from here, those water will also travel and it takes certain period of time to come. And in floods, we have two types of flood. We have the black flood and then the white flood. What we're experiencing now is the white flood at the peak of rainy season, whereby those other adjoining state or adjoining countries are upper part of Nigeria. Their rains normally comes much later. So their water also eventually flows down to Jigawa and then empty finally into the Chad Basin. So it's all encompassing, it's comprehensive. So water studies called flood mitigation is not a state affair, it's a national issue. Just like what we have been referring about Netherlands, what they've done is that they know the minimum years of the rain and they know the particular year that is maximum. It is in the basis of that, then corroborating with like the data of the NIMET, then they're able to do their own design, the kind of structures. Like in Netherlands, what they have done is that within 45 years, they're able to construct 13 dams within that particular corridor. And they are able to start developing the kind of houses that will suit such kind of flood-prone areas. You don't use blocks, you use mobile houses, houses that can be able to float within such kind of areas. So that's why in my earlier presentation, I said we have to go back to this drawing board. We are talking about the federal, nicer rivers that they monitor are only the major rivers. There are micro rivers, tributaries that are not being monitored. That's where the state government, Ministry of Water Resources, the state water board, Department of Hydrology and Hydrogeology is supposed to be generating data. Then they feed into the National Data Bank so that their prediction is going to have more quality, more efficiency.
We have our first caller on the line, Mansour Abdullahi from calling in from Abuja here. Hello, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I am Coach Mansour Abdullahi from Abuja, Nigeria.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to sincerely appreciate this very program, very educative, and all the guests present there. We know every life is very important. Like the deputy governor is saying, 50 years, this has never happened in Abuja. Now, I think this is a high time that the NEMA and every authority need to do the needful, because there is a tendency in the next 20, 25 years, we're going to experience another disaster worse than this. And as one of the speakers said, he's moving on the road, even the express road that just done, people are building. It's high time to sensitize people, NEMA, on building on waterways. We can't do it. We can't joke with waterways. According to where I came from, they say you don't block waterway. No matter how long it is, it will surely find its way. Then, not just that one. Even we'll come back to the city where we are today. You see people finding the drainage, dropping dustbin, trash inside. Definitely, I want to believe the expert will agree with me. This also have a side effect, and in recent time we'll be experiencing this thing. And master plans of building need to be followed to the latter to avoid such a kind of things, because I want to sincerely appreciate everyone. That's my little contribution for now. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for calling in. And a good time to go to Rasan Nuhu. How easy is it to manage people who are in flood-prone areas in terms of moving them to higher ground, providing alternative sources, especially those who, well, depend on their farmlands and who are tied to the areas where they live?
Very, very difficult for multiplicity of reasons. One, poverty. Two, illiteracy. Three, social, cultural practices. We've been talking about these predictions. And these predictions have consistently improved over years. But the problem is not at the level of prediction, really. The problem is largely at the level of the capacity of the people to even be able to comprehend these messages being passed through and to act on them. The early warning system has 4 subsystems: the risk knowledge, the accurate and reliable forecast, the mechanism to disseminate it to responsible authorities and to those communities at risk. And 4, and more importantly, is the capacity of those communities and the responsible authorities to be able to understand these warnings and act on them. And all over the world, in this value chain of early warning system, that number 4 and number 3 is the most difficult. And here, due to our level of poverty and
my ancestors spent all their life on this plot of land.
Exactly.
This is my ancestral home. I can't leave.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
How do you deal with that?
Well, we continue to advocate, continue to get the people who, when they talk, the people can understand. That's what we continue to do. We approach the traditional rulers, the community leaders, government officials to talk to them. You have to continue advocacy and advocacy and advocacy. If they don't listen to A, they will listen to B. That's what we continue doing.
Right. We go back to the phones. We have Yusuf calling in from Niger. Hello, Yusuf. Go ahead.
Okay. You see, when you talk is that is currently fraud, control and management.
Yes, Yusuf, go ahead.
You see, the major lacuna we have in the country is we are not actually proactive to some of these things. Also, and I believe if we be proactive and measures are being taken in the appropriate time, issues of flooding affecting some localities that are, or let me say, residents very close to these waterlogged areas that were corrected long ago. Measures should be made, possible residential areas should be created so that you can move these locals from these flood-prone areas. Also, for them to be relocated, get them convinced these are reasons they should be relocated. Because most of them will tell you this is the only way of life. People go into fish farming, which is actually very disastrous to their life. It will take you some time to convince such persons this is their only kind of living. They believe this is what they live on years and years, possibly they inherited it from their forefathers. So you cannot just come all of a sudden to tell them that no, village people leave this place you are residing for years and you are earning your livelihood. The government so love you, don't want you to be affected by flood. You have to be convinced. I believe that's my state.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Relocation. Relocate the people to safer grounds. Have you tried that, Deputy Governor?
Well, you see, relocation is, there are two aspects of it. One, acceptance of the people to move from where they are to a new place. In most cases, you know, especially people from the village, the only means of their economic activity is the farmland. They're so much attached to their own farmland. And by the time you say you are moving them from where that farmland is to another place, their only thinking is that farmland. How can they continue to travel from there to come back to the farmland? Because they may not get another farmland. And even if the government agreed, okay, we will resettle you here, we will give you another farmland around the area. The question is, they are living their ancestral home, which they are so much attached to. Let me give you some clear example. We have one town, Karnea, just along the Meduguri Road. The town, that's the town, for the last 50 years, they have not seen water like the one they have seen this year. So the water has taken over the entire town, the village. So what we did is we removed them out to a safer place in the primary school and some other place. But we thought, okay, since it's the state capital and we have IDF CAF, which was built by the Presidential Task Force on Flooding, and it's a very good place. There is bed, there's everything in that place. So all that we did, the state government provided water facilities, provide cooking facilities, provide everything. We have prepared the place, and we thought, okay, we are doing a good job for these people. We asked them, okay, we have this place for you. They refused to go. We come even begging them, okay, since you don't want to go, let the women and the children go there. Let the men stay here, watch the farmland and watch the village, so that at least, after trying to beg them, after some times, look, after the flooding, you will come back to this place. It's not that we are taking you there forever, but at least if you go there, you will have a better life and everything. They refuse. Up to today, we are talking to them. We are talking to the traditional rulers, even though the traditional have agreed that, okay, they will make sure that they move them. But as I'm talking to you, these people have refused to work.
Okay, we have Mohammed calling in from Jigawa State. Probably would give us some first-hand information on what's happening tonight. Mohammed, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, sirs. And as you rightly said, my name is Muhammad Misbah Basirka. I am the state chairman, Jigawa Civil Society Forum, an umbrella of the civil society working to actualize good governance. And I think I would like to commend all the speakers and participants in this very wonderful and important program tonight. I have two comments to make, sir, quickly due to the time factor. One is the issue of the natural disaster. Natural disaster is something that can come without a notice. But unfortunately, one fundamental basic issues we need to also embark on is calling the attention of the community people. We are a civil society working tirelessly day and night in this era we found ourselves. Currently, I'm talking to you now. There's a lot of people trying to also block the flowing of water that is always trying to wash away a lot of farmland and also enter into so many communities. Our people are there. In this moment I'm taking now, there is so many people trying to also protect their communities. Two, government have put a lot of resources, both state and local government in Jigawa, as rightly said by the deputy governor. But my own also question goes to all the participants, all the panelists, that what are the permanent solutions to this problem? Because this is something that is normally used to come at least 2 to 3, 5, 10 years. As rightly said by the deputy governor, like one village in Jigawa, Karanaya, they were never experienced this flooding since 50 years back. But now they are what? There is no more Karanaya. The already water have washed away whatever it is in that community. So what can we do? What are the permanent solutions can we also propose that will be sustainable to address these issues? And lastly, I'm also use this media to call upon the general public should please come into our aid, especially the Jigawa State and also the federal government have to also consider what is currently happening in Jigawa State, because a lot of people are suffering and this water are also currently going on, approaching a lot of communities, especially a remote area where you cannot reach by car, especially by motorcycle. You need to use canoe. And we need a lot of support from the federal government, please and please. So I wish all the panelists, especially the deputy governor, a successful deliberation. Thank you very much. I remain humble self, Muhammad Misbah Basurka from Jigawa State. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Mohammed from Jigawa. And let's go to Engineer Clement Nze. And yes, we want solutions. But just before that, the question of the cycle of floods. Some say it's every 10 years. Is that true? And if it is, what is the next step to that?
Thank you. What the Deputy Governor, His Excellency, mentioned it. And the last speaker talked about that. There are what we call return interval in hydrology. Return interval. That is why when you want to do any design, you take into account the return interval of certain magnitude of flood or rainfall. For instance, he mentioned a place for 50 years, the people hadn't witnessed that level of flooding. It happened, I think, 2020 in Bobolada. A man mentioned that I have been living here for the past 24 years. He hasn't seen flood. Now, if there's a proper design, you do, taking into account a certain flood magnitude, you have what we call maybe 10-year return interval, 20, 30, 50, even 1,000. You can use it to design. You will be able to take into account whatever be the vagaries of weather. Yes, we know about climate change phenomena. Now, also the climate change issue, we may say, proved us wrong a bit in 2012. The flood that occurred in 2012 was like a 80 to 100 year return interval in some places. But barely 2018, 6 years after, we had a flood scenario in Nigeria of almost a higher magnitude than 2012. Only that there was no release of water from Lagdo Dam. If there had been a water release from Lagdo Dam in 2018, 2012 could have been maybe something like a child's play. So consult experts when you are designing or any city, estate. Let there be proper design. Get the hydrological data to do your design. You'll be able to escape some of these
challenges we are having. Don't do guesswork. Now, to add to what His Excellency mentioned, we have Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation that came into being in 2012 after 2012 flood incident. This committee is co-chaired by Alhaji Aliko Dangote and Chief Olisabakoba. As we speak, several billions of naira poured since that time, invested and being utilized, still remain available. Flood hostels have been built. I've severally gone to a lot of local flood hostel. It has all the facilities where people are the approach of flooding season. People are asked to move to that flood hostel. It has whatever you can think of in a hostel, including water supply, hospital or clinic, dormitories, and so on and so forth. But some people don't find this convenient to move. They remain where they are, and they often caught unawares. Good to hear that Jigawa has its own. There are several other locations that these hostels were built by the federal government. Even we do appeal to state governments order to buy into the particular program of the federal government. At least the clinics can become functional all year round by your putting in staff, nurses, if possible, doctors too, to work in this clinic in the flood hostels, so that they have to also relieve the community, the state government about the issue of Medicare. So science is needed. Return interval. You can't do it by guesswork and say, people here, I'm being free here, nothing happened here 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it will not happen. No. So let us listen to predictions that are scientifically based.
Engineer Yusuf Abba, is it that we are not taking these predictions seriously, or we are not learning lessons? There's been a lot of reference to what happened in 2012, and we're seeing it happening almost on that magnitude now.
Cyril, I would say both. We're not taking the predictions seriously, and we're not learning from what has happened in the past. The reality of our situation globally now is that in addition to climate change, there's also population growth. Return periods of either floods or rainfall are well known to scientists. And based on whatever they find out, it's what they issue as advisory to the general public, the world over. The population of Nigeria has grown from what it was to over 220 million today. People must build houses, people must farm, they will go to schools, infrastructure must be constructed, but all these are not done without recourse to science and engineering. The Kano-Maiduguri highway was designed long time ago, and the design took cognizance of some of these issues, the return periods of floods, the return periods of rainfall, even temperatures. And we are lucky in this country. We have these able agencies in NISA and NIMET that alert the nations at the beginning of the rainy season every year. And this is what we are going to experience. And some state governors actually go to sleep. I'm not accusing any one of them, but we have tried severally, like my brother from NASA said, the Minister of Water Resources writes letters every year. We also, from NIMET, our minister writes to all these governors to facilitate us. We go and downscale these products to the lowest community structure so that they can own this and be ready. We are willing to go and downscale and train community members to be able to use our products. Unfortunately, we are not getting this kind of support from the states. At the federal government, of course, all the federal MDAs, they listen to us, they collaborate with us, but there's so much they can do, so little rather, without collaboration with the states. Last year, we witnessed a phenomenon that is not usual. We witnessed the dry spell and the little dry season across most of the southern states of the country. Now, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture was getting reports from the field officers that there's dry season, crops are dying. We said, well, we have alerted you on this. We have requested that we go and talk to your field officers, your extension workers, so that they can carry this information and advise farmers on what to do. We don't get this kind of support, unfortunately, especially from the states, as I keep on reiterating. And unless we're able to get this kind of support, this information will produce, it will go on air, NTA will carry it, our newspapers will carry it, but that will be the end. But we want to go and save lives. Spend just 1% of your annual budget on these early warning systems and the dissemination of these products, and you will see that you will save more than 20% of your budget. Early warnings are designed to do that, to save money, to save lives, to save property. Unfortunately, people are not listening to us, and we are getting a little frustrated, but we are trying to do our best.
Correct. Dr. Yusuf Rigasa, what do you have to say to that?
Listening to all the commentators, what is very clear is that gaps exist in what all the agencies are doing, and they seem to be lost somehow. The reality is that people are going to experience flood. They are going to lose their lose their lives. They are going to lose their livelihoods, and they don't know what to do. I believe that one of the reasons why we are here is to be able to chart a way forward. Somebody asked a question: is there a permanent solution to this perennial flood? Yes, there is an answer for him. There is a permanent solution to this flood. Before 2022, or if you go back in history, hundreds and thousands of years ago, our ancestors were in this land that we are occupying today. They have been able to manage all kinds of environmental disasters, including flood. And I would like to tell His Excellency that within Nigeria, there are experts that can even do better than what has been done in Netherlands. Netherlands is just unique because they took that challenge upon themselves and they were able to solve their problems. Now, based on indigenous intelligence, if you go to certain communities, even now if you go to certain communities in the coastline, there are communities that have been able to mitigate and adapt to the occurrence of these flooding events. Now we need to go to such communities, learn from them, and also, go back to our communities and citizens, empower them technically, financially, and even educationally wise, so that when a flash flood comes, they know how to mitigate it, they know how to adapt to it. Nobody wants to move away from this area of comfort. So it is understandable that people will not want to move away from their homes, they don't want to move away from their farmlands. Our challenge is to be able to mitigate as well as make people adapt to these particular challenges. Relocation is not the answer.
Okay, well, how do you manage nature? This for the geologists, Ahmed Kana. How do you manage nature? They say Mother Nature can be very vicious sometimes. How do you manage?
In terms of flood, could be taken into three perspectives. The kind of flooding we have in Nigeria, we have the coastal flooding, we have the river flooding, and we have the urban flooding. So our design from the data we have generated is going to be predicated based on town to town, location to location, catchment to catchment. For instance, now, if I'm to take the case of, let's say, Makurdi, for instance, we had flooding in 2012 in Makurdi, and the general view was that River Benue needed to be dredged, which is not the issue of dredging. The problem of Makurdi flooding in terms of urban flooding is the environmental problem, anthropogenic activities. Now, and then high rainfall. So how do you take care of that? You do canals, just like what is happening in the Netherlands. The Delft, we have the Delft hydraulics. You will know the total quantity of rain that falls, then you do canals so that it can be able to take even at peak of the highest raining years, so that it accommodates that, so that all the water will finally empty onto the River Benue. If you are talking about Maiduguri as a case study, if you go to Maiduguri, that's why they have a lot of mosquitoes in that place, because you have some stagnation of water here and there within the town. The whole of their problem there is typological factors, that topography. The area is almost flat. So there is no slope for the water to go. And at the peak of, as we speak now, in terms of the climate change, rainfall pattern in Maiduguri before used to be less than 600 millimeter, and that was why they used to have drought. But as at the last station workshop we had, even the DJ can attribute to that, the presentation of Professor Goni, as within the last few years, the rainfall has increased up to 1,000 millimeter. It means now, if we have topological problem, where will that water go? It means the design for Maiduguri has to be also unique to take care of the canalization and how it will be channeled to where. So that means the issue of flood is multidisciplinary. It's going to be interministerial. The Urban Development Board, the Land and Survey, Water Board, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Environment, they have to work together. So in order to be able to mitigate that. Then another solution again is that flood could be positive. You know, ironically, we are talking about the negative aspect of flood. When you have excess water, it could also be reserved for irrigation in the dry season. There is a way you can create a sort of channel to what we call retention basins. Area where it is very flat, very far from the town. You can do like what politicians call a dam. You can do a dam that has water from nowhere. So in the rainy season, you channel those water to those areas, they will pocket, and eventually, number one thing they will do there is they will recharge the groundwater. That's the water cycle. And secondly, they could be used for irrigation in that kind of area. You can do that is what we call injection wells. Even you can do that locally. It has already been practiced even in Australia. You drill like a borehole or almost 20 inches up to certain depth. Then you put in stones, chippings into that place in order to avoid even contaminating the groundwater. As the excess water is coming, it goes into the ground, and it can also mitigate flooding. So there are so many case studies. So the solution is town to town, and we have to take models. If we are to Maiduguri, the federal government agency or collaborate with the state to do the design for Maiduguri to solve that kind of problem, Makurdi to solve that kind of problem. While we are doing that, the catchment hydrology, we have 8 river basins, 12 river basins with 8 hydrological areas, and then it will interest you to know, like for instance, where I come from Lafia. A lot of our rivers in Lafia are not even from the rain. Our water in Lafia are groundwater, so we have a lot of pocket of springs. So that's another dimension completely. So each town will have to be studied scientifically, generating data from the water agencies, and then there's a need for reorientation. Based on the presentation of the earlier speakers, that information will be given from the state. There's incapacitation from the state. They cannot give what they don't have. The kind of capacity you have at the federal level, most of the state don't have. Water corporations are not aware that the management of rain, management of the river is even their schedule. Their thinking is just to drill boreholes, or you have a river, buy chlorine, buy alum, and then you treat, and that's all. In the Netherlands, they mentioned, Netherlands, one of the functions of water corporation is auto flood mitigation. You have what we call the sump pumps. You put a pump into rivers of certain capacity of different dimension. As long as water reaches up to certain millimeter, that pump would automatically start up and start dewatering the water from that area. And that's what they are doing in Netherlands. Even in Netherlands, that's living 6 meters below sea, they are able to achieve that. Nigeria can also achieve that. And I can also allude to the earlier speaker who have all those professionals that are tested and well published in Nigeria. So the only thing is the political will and then long-term planning. Just like Nigeria was able to achieve in some of the construction, like what the deputy governor is saying about Jigawa, the issue of the dikes. You can construct dikes not on the banks. In Netherlands, they do what we call artificial domes. You can carry sand from great distance. You go to Amsterdam Waterworks, they have created artificial domes which kill 2 birds. That water that comes, it does serve as a flood mitigation, and then the water that comes even is unwanted water, but as it passes after that particular area, the water will serve natural filtration. You can even do that physical way of treatment. So there are so many ways that are positives in terms of even flood. So the only thing is just the political, and then to galvanize our experts, and then to train more people in hydrology. The DG can allude to us. In this country, we don't have much tested hydrologists in this country today again. Most of the hydrologists are dying. We don't have gauge readers even in the state agencies. So there is a need for how to do a concerted effort to set our staff, our officers for training in terms of hydrology, in terms of limnology. That's wetland studies. There's a need for that. Because most of the flow we're talking about now is within the town, within the country, not coastal. So that's we need a lot of experts in terms so that we can leverage on the excess water we have for agriculture. We are talking about water and food security. That's my take, sir.
All right, Engineer Clement, the matter of you said earlier on that it was a lucky thing in 2018, for instance, that water wasn't released
Yes.
from Bagdo, which could have exacerbated the situation here. Now, this means that sometimes there are contributory factors from outside the shores of this country. What is the engagement of Nigeria and its its neighbors in terms of this?
Okay, Nigeria is located in what we call Niger Basin, at the bottom of Niger Basin. Not like in your Washan Basin. There is a point where the wastewater, after washing your hand, goes out through. That way Nigeria is located in what we call Niger Basin. 9 countries. From Guinea, Mali, Niger, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, on River Benue, and then Cameroon and Chad, on River Niger, then Cameroon and Chad on River Benue. Or whatever happens in these countries, a basin of about 1.5 million square kilometers, that's the size of the basin, with about 130 million people living in this basin. So whatever happens in all these upper catchments comes down to Nigeria, from where it moves down to the ocean, about 4,200 kilometers, starting from Guinea. Now there are structures, dams, on River Niger, on River Benue, that affect Nigeria. So there is a collaboration between Nigeria and these other countries. For instance, I think today I engage community authorities to find out what is happening in Lagdo Dam. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, on our own catchment of River Benue, we don't have a dam. Cameroon built their own Lagdo Dam between 1977 and 1982, about 7.6 billion cubic meters of water. That's what it returns. We try to do our own at the Hausa Dam for the local government in Adamawa, about 16 billion cubic meters, but it's not actually taken off. So what we do is because we have an MOU, the two presidents signed an MOU in 2016. Paul Biya came to Nigeria, and it was signed that in the event you need to release water from Lagdo Dam, notify Nigeria ahead of time so that we can do other things. Likewise, on River Niger, we have Kandaji Dam in Niger, and also we have our Kainji, Jeba, and Shiroro dams. As of today, these 3 dams are still impounding water, trying to feed their dams in Nigeria. So no spilling of water as of today. Likewise, Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, they are still looking for water to fill up their dams. So whatever is happening so far is locally, not aggravated by any transboundary river, getting flooded. It's local rainfall, what we may call it urban flooding. And the amount of so much rainfall of high intensity and longer duration. And because everywhere is maybe built up, high population and so on, and then the anthropogenic activities of refuge everywhere, translating to what kind of flood we have. Like the river channels, seated up here and there, current capacity reduced. That what has been causing the urban flood or flash flood in Nigeria. I mean, within the various cities as shown by the correspondents. So we have to be very careful that in the event the dams upstream open up, that we should be able to contain it in Nigeria. So what we are waiting for, in event they are releasing water, Cameroon will notify Nigeria, and we will try to take care of our citizens by relocating them and taking other measures.
Relocating them, and Alasa relief and rehabilitation, and how far with the rehabilitation of victims of this?
Right now we are at the relief phase because people have left their houses without food, without basic necessities of life. So it's stage by stage. When you first of all, search for them, rescue them, you give them food, you give them temporary shelter. After sometimes they want to go back to their houses. And that is where the rehabilitation package will come in. Normally, NEMA gives building materials to help them to be able to rebuild their own houses. We give them cements, roofing sheets, nails, planks, ceiling boards, etc., etc. Thereafter, you go into the recovery phase. There will be broken pipes, broken poles. This also need to be mended. So when you finish with the relief phase, you go to rehabilitation, you go to recovery. And we are following the phases one by one. Not that we wait until the time for rehabilitation comes. We get prepared for both. But right now we are at this stage of relief.
What's in the offing for farmers whose farmlands have been washed away?
Yeah, like in 2018 and 2020, federal government approved an emergency agricultural intervention to farmers. What we try to do with that is to attack vulnerability from the point of production, to ensure that the farmers are strong enough to withstand the next round of flooding by giving them seedlings, pumping machines, sprayers, growth enhancers, and other farm implements. So we did that in 2018, 2020, depending on the gravity of the flood in 2022. Government might still be interested in providing livelihood support to farmers who are affected by the flood.
Back to Jigawa, as we begin to wind down now, Deputy Governor, with the situation back home. What is the state government working on?
Well, like I said, what we are doing is after resettling these people, we'll provide relief for them.
Yes, well, we're looking at predictions of more flooding coming ahead, and you've identified places where the people there might be at risk.
Yeah, all we are doing is just the same thing. You see, is to provide the reliefs. When it happens, we'll find a place to keep them, and then provide the necessary relief for them. Now, again, like I said, it's likely to happen again, and we will continue to do the same thing we are doing. But at the end of it, you see, like a very good question you ask. This farmland that has been washed away is a real serious problem. What we are doing normally, we provide what we call residual moisture in Jigawa State. Now, residual moisture is we find early maturing crops. We give them so that they plant it, and then we provide, at least that will give them some relief to get food. But the question is the magnitude of this year is what we are looking at. And that's why we are saying there's need for federal government to intervene on this. It's very, very necessary to get these people to continue with their life, normal life. The state government is doing all it can to make sure that these people are at least rehabilitated. But what we are seeing is an issue that will require an intervention. They lost their means of livelihood. Even what the NEMA is saying, but the question is, even if they look at it and the reality is, the magnitude of this thing is something that they don't expect. They are also overstretched. We're talking of 33 states in Nigeria. That has to, and I'm sure the budget of NEMA did not anticipate this magnitude. So it's something that requires an extra intervention from the federal government. It's something that requires an extra intervention because it's beyond the anticipation of both the state and the federal government. So something needs to be done immediately and as an emergency.
The final questions on this program tonight would be for Engineer Clement Nze and my lad Yusuf Abba. And I always want to ask this and say yes. You say these are all scientific, straightforward, you make these predictions, you give the outlook, the flood outlook. Do you say to yourself, I wish this would not happen? You wish you're wrong sometimes when you make these predictions.
That's a very good question. You see, when you, at the end of the flooding season and you take stocks, that you say, let me look at the percentage accuracy of your prediction. I've always said that I don't feel happy that my prediction each time comes to pass. I'm looking for a situation whereby we predicted that the 32 states in Nigeria, including the FCT, will suffer heavy flooding in the course of 2022. Totaling 233 states. So I'm looking for a situation whereby at the end of the day, it will reach up to 20. But unfortunately, and very regrettably, very painful enough that these things keep coming to pass. So we are not so keen or delighted in saying my prediction came to pass. And so we are science, what you have said, happened and so. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So where we have told the people, we expect that action should be taken early enough to ensure that some of these things don't repeat themselves in a kind of cyclic way annually.
Well, Engineer Meladi Yusuf Abba, I must ask you the same question as Director of Weather Forecasting Service of NIMET.
Well, it's true. We issue forecasts, and over time, our forecasts have come to be near 100% in some cases. We're not happy that after issuing these forecasts and given the socio-economic implications of the forecast across all sectors, we still have these kind of issues coming up. Flooding will happen, it will continue to happen. But how do we manage it? And that is the problem I think we're having. We cannot manage flooding. It has to be a collaborative effort of all governments at all levels, plus the communities. Who are the recipients, who are the sufferers most of all these disasters? Not only flooding, there's droughts happening in the country, there is this migration due to desertification. And we issue warnings on this. We issue advisories. Take these advisories so that we can be able to manage whatever disaster that is affecting the country. Climate change is causing more chaos in the weather than in any other sector. But we are able to follow it, study it, and analyze and develop products that will help sectors across the board. Now, look at the flooding of farmlands, for example. We have developed a concept, and we sold it to Central Bank. That's on weather index insurance. Why don't you promote and encourage farmers through their state governments to take this weather index insurance? That if we issue predictions of so-so rainfall, and it happens that the rainfall goes beyond our predictions, the farmer must be compensated one way or the other through the index insurance he has taken. So these are some of these things, but unless we are able to come together, it's not always that we say money. As I said earlier, if teaching time says 9, spend 1% of your annual budget on early warning and dissemination of the information contained therein, and you will save more than 20% of losses on your budgets. This has been proven worldwide. I hope we take that in Nigeria as well.
All right, thank you so very much, and we must leave this conversation at this point in time. As I always say, no one program can take on all the issues. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Engineer Meladi Yusuf Abba, Director of Weather Forecasting Service of NIMET. Thank you for coming on this program. Let me also say thank you to Dr. Yusuf Rigasa, former General Manager, Kaduna State Environmental Protection Agency. We thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on this program. Thank you so much. And also Big thank you to the geologist Ahmed Kana, who has availed us of his knowledge in these matters. Thank you so much for coming on this program. Thank you. And I must say a big thank you also to Al-Hassan Nuhu, Director Relief and Rehabilitation of NEMA. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Clement Nze, Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. It's always good to have you here with us, and we thank you for always honoring our invitation.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And once again, we say a big thank you to the Deputy Governor of Jigawa State, His Excellency Omar Namadi. Thank you for coming on this program.
Thank you very much.
And thank you too for being part of tonight's program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.
Thank you.